Welcome to MTN Outdoors.
Welcome everybody to this week's episode of MTN Outdoors. I'm once again your guide, Andy Curtis, and I'm recommending a good pair of waders or at least a towel for today's episode because we're talking all about water. And the state sure has seen a lot of it flowing this month. So, we'll go chasing some waterfalls down in Yellowstone National Park. We'll take our kayaks out to a hidden gem in eastern Montana, and we'll even wade into the 40-year-long debate about water rights and some of our tribes. But before we get to any of those stories, I'm sure you remember the historic and devastating floods that ravaged the state about this time last year. Well, we've been getting a lot of people asking, did they have any impacts on our fish populations? MTN's Chet Lehman asked that same question and found some answers.
This is the Yellowstone River south of Livingston. We've all seen the destruction from last year's flooding. Banks washed away, roads washed away, homes washed into the river. But what about for the creatures who live below the surface of this? What did the flooding of 2022 on the Yellowstone River do to the fisheries?
A lot of folks have been asking us how the fish in the Yellowstone River have been doing since last year's flooding event. And we've continued yearly sampling just like we have in any other year. This year we saw some good things. First of all, the fish are still here. They didn't get flushed out.
They know this by yearly studies. Fish are captured, pit tagged, and returned to the river. Fish caught before the flood were also caught after, and they weren't alone.
In terms of population impacts, we did see actually increases in fish populations among brown trout, rainbow trout, and cutthroat trout at the Corwin Springs area. In the Mill Creek section, we saw increases in brown trout and decreases in rainbow trout and cutthroat trout. So kind of some ups and some downs there. Bottom line is that the fish are still here. Flooding events are part of this system. These fish have been with, changes like that for thousands of years, and we expect this system to fully recover from the fisheries standpoint.
Last year's flooding on the Yellowstone River, record highs. We've also seen this water very low in times of drought. The one thing we know for sure is Mother Nature finds a way, high or low. On the Yellowstone River south of Livingston, Chet Lehman, MTN News.
For 115 years, this little hatchery in Anaconda has been supplying Montana's waterways with one of its most precious resources: trout.
We take care of them day in and day out, 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. So there's a lot of time and care that goes into the product that we produce.
The product: West Slope cutthroat and Arctic grayling, two species of trout that are native to Montana waters. The hatchery, located at Anaconda's Washoe Park, raises the fish from eggs until they're old enough to be relocated to lakes and river tributaries across the state.
And so to make sure that they are healthy, well-fed, have nice fins and look good, it takes a lot of care. There's kind of an art to it. There's an art and a science to it for sure.
So right now I'm scooping out some year-old West Slope cutthroat, and these beauties are going up to Cooper's Lake in the Blackfoot. And they're going to be sending about 4,000 of these West Slope cutthroat up to the lake. And so if you end up catching one, you can thank me.
We'll be netting fish from inside and then bringing them out to the truck. The truck has oxygen running all the time and aerators running all the time to give the fish everything they need to survive the trip.
While they don't stock trout in major rivers like the Big Hole, which has been seeing a decline in trout numbers, they do stock the tributaries to the Big Hole, and they hope this will help the struggling river.
West Slope cutthroat have been here in Montana for millions of years, and they don't inhabit as much of their historical range as they used to. And so raising them here gives us the opportunity to expand them back into some of their historical range.
You must be proud of your fish. Are they like your little pets?
Not pets, I'd say more like kids. Teenagers, yeah, they're very moody. They're very sensitive. They don't like us, really. So, yeah, we do everything we can for them.
The hatchery produces about 250,000 trout a year and stocks 200 lakes in Montana. In Anaconda, John Amy, MTN News.
Well, as it turns out, if you actually want to catch a fish, you probably need a fly rod. MTN's John Amy is about to take us to a Montana-made rod shop where they focus on quality over quantity.
In this humble little rod shop in Wise River, a young Butte man is making these custom-made fly rods just a few hundred yards from the Big Hole River where he's fished ever since he was a kid. He's carrying on a family tradition and living his dream.
It's all about the details. It's all about the details.
Hunter Dixon recently opened the rod shop in Wise River with his father, Rudy Ketchum, who taught him the art of making fly rods.
It's really fun to work with your family, you know, and it's something that we always kind of talked about getting into business together, you know. It was one of those things you talk about when you're a kid, and then it's finally coming to fruition, you know, so we're really proud of that.
His father first made the Montana Rodsmiths fly rods in Butte, but eventually moved the operation to the Big Hole River area, where they've hunted and fished for years.
We're happy to be here in the Big Hole Valley, you know. We've grown up, we learned how to fish here, and we all live up here, so that's just really special and exciting for us to be able to partake in the Wise River community and be a part of the fly fishing community as well.
Well, Hunter, I saw you making these rods. You certainly are an artist, so let me see if I can master the art of casting one of these. Let's see. Oh yeah, that feels really good. That's amazing. It just slides right out of there. Great action. These are truly works of art. They're wonderful. Good work.
Taking your time on it and making sure that everything on it is flawless, because this is my work going out here, you know what I mean? I want every single person that picks up one of these rods to look at it and just say, wow, I can't believe how beautiful this is and how well it works.
In Wise River, John Amy, MTN News.
And that brings us to this week's MTN Outdoors trivia question. And guess what? It has to do with fly fishing. But this week it has to do with fly fishing and everyone's favorite Montana-focused fly fishing movie, A River Runs Through It. The 1992 Robert Redford directed film is arguably the most famous film about Montana and fishing in Montana. So today's question is a simple true or false. And it should be a very easy one. So here we go. A River Runs Through It famously takes place in Missoula. But was it filmed there? You see, maybe this is a little trickier than you thought. Think about it. Get rid of that coffee can filled with night crawlers, and we'll have your answer right after this.
We now return to MTN Outdoors.
Welcome back, everybody. Thanks for sticking around for this week's episode of MTN Outdoors. I am currently your dry guide, Andy Curtis. And just before the break, I asked you this week's MTN Outdoors trivia question, and just in case you missed it, here it is one more time. And this week, it's a simple true or false. And it has to do with either your favorite fly fishing movie or your least favorite fly fishing movie. A river runs through it. So let's assume you're familiar with the movie. This one should be easy then. It famously takes place in Missoula, but was it filmed there? Drum roll please. The answer is false. According to the movie website imdb.com, it was actually filmed in and around Livingston, Big Timber, and I'm sorry, but also Bozeman instead of Missoula, filming a lot of the scenes in the Gallatin Canyon and on the Gallatin River. Now, if you disagree and swear you were there as they shot scenes in Missoula and know that I'm wrong, shoot me an email to andy.curtis@ktvh.com. Include a picture to back up what you're saying, and I'll add it to the end of next week's episode. And while we're talking about A River Runs Through It, here's a few fun facts for you. Brad Pitt, you know, the actor, trained himself to fly fish for weeks ahead of shooting the film. And apparently, because there's a lack of rivers in LA, I'm told, he would actually practice on rooftops, which there is no shortage of in Hollywood. Well, staying on the subject of Hollywood, Yellowstone National Park sure gets its fair share of attention in movies and TV, and now one of its main attractions is getting its own stamp. MTN's John Shear has our story.
It's one of the most popular places in Yellowstone National Park for photos, ranking perhaps just behind Old Faithful.
My wife and I came to Yellowstone 15 years ago, and we were just here for 2 or 3 days. This time we had a whole week to explore, and we didn't get a chance to see the falls last time we were here, so we had to add this to the bucket list this time.
The colorful photo of this famous waterfall, which now adorns a new forever stamp, only happened because of a missed opportunity.
Well, almost 16 years ago when we arrived at Canyon Village, I quickly learned that Artist Point had been closed down for repairs.
So Ken Kiefer was forced to move to the other side of the canyon.
Did it turn out for the best? Indeed it did.
The ceremony, held in Canyon, just down the road from the overlook where the photo was taken, featured postal and park officials and Yellowstone Superintendent Cam Shawley, who noted the importance of the day for the park.
It's much better to be here with you now in 2023 on June 13th than it was back on June 13th of 2022.
Exactly 1 year ago, catastrophic flooding wiped out roads and access to the northern part of Yellowstone. The park closed for 8 days, and access through the north entrance was not restored for more than 4 months.
I think in some ways a galvanizing moment for many of us to come together right after COVID, right into a major natural disaster, and to see how we come together in times of need.
And Yellowstone is bouncing back in a big way.
Our numbers are already higher than 2019 as far as vehicle entries, so I think we're seeing a really good rebound.
One of the last big pieces to reopening is finishing work on the wastewater treatment system for Mammoth. That would allow the big hotel and restaurants to reopen there. In Yellowstone National Park, I'm John Shearer, MTN News.
Well, here's some interesting news that I just found out. There's other spots to recreate that aren't Yellowstone National Park here in Montana. Shocker, right? This next story is a great example of just that.
Here in Montana, we're spoiled with all the natural beauty around us, but there are still a few hidden gems out there, and Bighorn Canyon is one of them. Right now is the perfect time to paddle this beautiful lake. You pretty much have the entire place to yourself.
When the lake is super glassy, it almost hurts your feelings to put your paddle in the lake.
In a state as big as Montana, there's always someplace new to explore. Beauty just around the next bend.
I think that the visitors that come here say it the most. It was unexpected. Like, nobody expects this giant canyon out in the middle of nowhere.
This canyon in the middle of nowhere is home to the Bighorn Canyon National Recreation Waterway Trail, a 71-mile-long path through Bighorn Lake. My family and I set out to explore just a portion of this little-known treasure, paddling 2.8 miles from Barry's Landing to the Medicine Creek Campground. one of 3 in the park only accessible by boat. Getting there can be a lot of work.
The wind was very strong.
But that just gives you more time to explore, with hidden nooks and crannies etched into the canyon's walls.
It's pretty deep.
Views that will absolutely take your breath away.
All of a sudden you hear rocks falling from above you and you look up and there's bighorn sheep.
After about 2 hours of paddling, our destination was finally in sight, a sight for sore eyes. With just 5 tent pads, Medicine Creek Campground is as remote as they come.
Feels like an adventure, especially because it's like basically a backpacking trip.
And from here, you can take a short hike to even more spectacular views atop Barry's Island.
Experiences like that people don't expect.
Experiences you don't expect almost everywhere you look. A waterway trail growing more popular each year, right in our own backyard. In beautiful Bighorn Canyon, Kagan Harsha, MTN News.
Stick around, everyone, because when we come back, we'll take a look at a water rights settlement 40 years in the making. There's plenty more MTN Outdoors to come right after this.
We now return to MTN Outdoors.
Welcome back, everybody, and thanks for sticking around here for this week's episode of MTN Outdoors. Now, this next story has been a long time coming. 40 years, to be exact. MTN's Ryan Gamboa has the conclusion of this water rights debate.
The Fort Belknap Indian Community Water Settlement is getting bipartisan support from congressional leaders and the state of Montana. If passed in Congress, it's the last leg to the indigenous water fight.
We're finally going to quantify our water rights to Fort Belknap, and we've been working on this for 40 plus years.
4 decades of negotiations, and the Assiniboine and Gros Ventre people finally have security. President Jeff Stiffarm.
What it's going to mean to the people of Fort Belknap is we're finally going to have some money for infrastructure.
The Fort Belknap Indian Community Water Settlement will provide $1.3 billion to improve infrastructure and economic development. The bill also restores tribal management of nearly 38,000 acres of state and federal land. The funding will help improve the efficiency of the U.S. Bureau of Reclamation Milk River project, furnishing water for 121,000 acres of tribal and non-tribal lands.
The money that Bureau of Reclamation will be specifically utilizing, as there is $300 million identified in there for mitigation project. And that mitigation project is to mitigate the impacts that the exercise of the tribe's reserved rights would have on non-tribal water users, largely the Milk River project.
This piece of federal legislation has gained bipartisan support from congressional leaders and the state of Montana.
After many years of effort and good faith negotiation, it is time to pass this bipartisan bill to resolve Montana's final Indian water rights settlement.
We have trust responsibilities to Indian tribes across this country, and Fort Belknap certainly fits that mold. With the Indian water rights case, it was settled back in 1908. Called the Winters case. This water settlement meets the goals of that case and meets that settlement.
Senator Tester has spearheaded the FBIC water settlement, among others. In 1908, the Supreme Court case Winters v. the United States. Winters won a case that set the precedent that with an allotment of tribal lands comes water rights. Fort Belknap is known as the Winters tribe, and ironically enough, the tribe who fought for tribal water rights nationwide is the final installment in Montana.
$1.3 billion. How much did Congress and Senate give Ukraine just recently, which are not even citizens of this country in a blink of an eye? But to have a hard time giving the people, the first people of this nation, $1.3 billion just for our water. That's hard to fathom and hard to swallow.
You see that spillway to my left? That's a spillway with so much water pressure that to my right, it's taking away gravity to divert water through a canal that's a vital aqueduct to Fort Belknap life.
This water is everything to us. That's all we have here is our agriculture.
And then we have other water sources at different parts of the reservation, and it is extremely vital for our lives.
Fort Belknap's 100-year-old water system is in desperate need of renovations. With the $1.3 billion, it's an opportunity to fix Fort Belknap Dam, upgrade farming irrigation, and provide hope for the former nomadic hunters who have turned modern-day farmers.
Without water, we won't survive. And all we're doing is looking out for our future generations by getting this done.
The bill still needs to pass through the House and Senate. With bipartisan support, the tribe and federal lawmakers are optimistic President Biden will sign the bill. In Fort Belknap, Ryan Gamboa, MTN News.
And in more outside news today, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and Montana Fish, Wildlife and Parks are seeking information on a grizzly bear cub that was shot and killed along East Lake Road near New Miami Colony, west of Conrad. Now, the bear was first discovered on June 7th. The federal wildlife officials investigating the scene with the assistance of FWP game wardens determined the bear had gunshot wounds and was killed sometime after June 4th. No other information is currently available, but anyone with possible information about this bear is encouraged to call the FWP Violation Reporting Hotline at 1-800-TIP-MONT. That's 1-800-847-6668. All right, everybody, that should just about do it for me this week here at MTN Outdoors. Thanks for spending some time with me. And remember, as you get out hiking, camping, fishing this summer, send me a photo to andy.curtis@ktvh.com. And you could see yourself at the end of a future episode. And with that, let's take a look at this week's MTN Outdoors brag board. And today's video was sent in to me by Russell and Helena. And it's kind of a preview of hopefully a future brag board with these bucks still in velvet, strolling around free and easy on the capital city's west side. Now, chances are, if they stay in town, they won't end up on anybody's wall. But with antlers like this, hopefully they make their way out on the public land sometime this fall. Thanks for the video, Russ. All right, everybody. Thanks for watching, and until next week, stay safe, stay dry, and I'll see you out there.